Welcome to a new video in my home automation series. And last time when I received the package with the Sonoff ZB Bridge Ultra, I also received this guy in the same mail, which is the S-Mate Extreme or S-Mate basically 2.0. And this is also a fairly new product, but the product family is not exactly new because, well, as the name suggests, this is S-Mate 2, so there was a previous S-Mate as well, which was available for quite a few number of years now. I never owned that one, but I owned a very similar, or I reviewed a very similar product, which was the R5. And both of them are basically battery operated switches that you can pair with some other Sonoff devices. So you can have like an external switch that you can set up with a two-way switching or something like that. But the difference between the two is that with the R5 you get a switch, so you get the whole product. You can just put it onto the wall and then that's it. So it had like all the buttons and everything. Here this S-Mate is actually designed so you can just hook it up with your existing light switch. So again, if for aesthetic reasons or for other reasons you wish to keep your existing light switches, you don't want to buy the ones that are Sonoff produces, then you actually need the S-Mate. As you can see, I have this very generic 2-gang light switch, and it is wired into this S-Mate 2, and it is not connected to anything else because this has a battery inside just like the R5, and now it is ready to go. You just need a device that it can talk to, because it doesn't talk directly with all the other devices in Wi-Fi. It needs an EV-Link remote gateway, and this remote gateway can be a few different devices. So it can be like a mini R3, it can be a mini Extreme, a Switchman, so these are the M5 switches, the TX Ultimate, so smart switch. It can be BA05 light bulbs as well, S40 or the S40 Lite, NS Panel Pro, and it can be the dual R3 as well, which actually I'm going to use this guy with the dual, so that's up there. I'm going to show you later on. So just make sure that you have at least one of these devices in order to use this guy. So let me show you how this whole thing works as a complete system. So at the moment I have the S-Mate, which is connected to my light switches. I'm going to talk about the wiring a little bit later on. And I have the R5, the Sonoff Dual, and this S-Mate 2 is connected to the Sonoff Dual as a sub device. Again, I'm going to show you how that looks like in the app. And what I have done, I've created some smart scenes which says if I switch on this light, then it switches on the first gang of the dual, and if I do the other one, it does the second gang. So obviously here on the dual I don't have physical buttons, but again, you are supposed to link it with another smart switch. But now I can do it with the S-Mate as well. So if I turn this one on, this gang comes on. I can do the same with the other, and I can turn it off. So basically I created a remote switch for this dual, which is battery operated, so I can put anywhere I want. I mean, obviously this needs to be mounted behind the existing light switch, but it doesn't need to be wired, so it can be in two different places, completely different places, maybe in places which are not originally wired, so you don't have to run wires between the two. You can just use the S-Mate and they are going to communicate wirelessly. Let me quickly go through the listing because it's going to show you a couple of images that I want to just show you. So I think actually there are two main differences between the new S-Mate and the original one. First of all, they have an option to use different type of switches. There is going to be a diagram for that, so I'm going to come back later to it. And secondly, they used a different type of battery. So the old one used a regular CR 3025 coin cell, and this one is using a 2477, so this really thick coin cell, which I cannot buy in any of the stores, so I have to buy a few of them online. And they are claiming a 5-year battery life for it, which is definitely good because once you start this, once you start mounting them behind your light switches, it would be quite awkward if you have to remove all your light switches every 2 years or every year to replace the battery. But at least now you only have to do it every 5 years. and you know, they communicate wirelessly, and they are using a wireless technology which is good for up to 50 meters. So I mean, ideally you want to have this gateway in another room or in the same room just to be sure, but you know, 50 meters, I mean, I guess this is 50 meters in ideal conditions. So here they are showing that how you can use the S-Mate with a mini R4. And the other thing which I did not mention, that here in my setup I'm using a 2-gang switch, but actually the S-Mate has 3 inputs, so you can use it up to a 3-gang switch, so 1-gang, 2-gang, 3-gang. So if you are not using with a 3-gang, you just don't, you know, connect the wires. So you can see the wiring diagram here, but actually I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. And of course that means that you can, as you can see in this diagram, you can use multiple S-Mates in order to control like a 2-way setup or a 3-way setup. So here it shows 2, but to any of these gateways you can connect up to 8 devices. And then you can do the, you know, usual things. Oh yeah, it shows another thing here, how you can use the dual to control blinds, because then obviously you need 2 switches, you know, up and down. And yeah, it talks about the gateway, and you know, 5-year battery life, and that's the other thing. So you can use it with 2 different switch types. So a normal rocker switch, that's the you know, the setup that I have, but you can use it with momentary switches. And if you use it with momentary switches, the advantage that you can define scenes for single press, double press, and long press. So let's say if you use a 3-gang, or basically 3 push buttons, you can configure 9 different events to, you know, do something, turn lights on, or, you know, change brightness, colors, you know, whatever you want. And here you can see all the different devices that are supported as gateways. So I already mentioned these. So I think I have the Switchman, I have the Dual, and the NS Panel Pro. I don't think I have, well, I did the mini, I have the mini extreme as well. I mean, I've definitely seen these options in, you know, in the setup when I was talking about these devices. And there is a wiring diagram here, but actually I created my own wiring diagram, so I'm going to go through that just a little bit later. So if you allow me, let me just use my diagram to show you how the wiring looks like typically with the S-Mate. So this is the image how you would wire a, let's say, a 2-gang chandelier before, you know, any of the smart devices. So normally what happens that you have the neutral line, which is the blue, which runs directly to the light, which is usually, you know, in the ceiling or, you know, close to the ceiling. And then you have the live wire. So this is coming from the switchboard, and then the basically the fixed live wire comes to the switch, and then you have the 2 switch live wires which then go to the light switch. And obviously the issue with this particular setup is that the neutral line doesn't come down to the switch, so you won't be able to replace this, you know, regular switch which with, let's say, a TX or a, you know, T1 or T0, which they all require a neutral line. But with the S-Mate, what you can do is you can completely disconnect, you know, how you control your light, and then, you know, what the your light switch is connected to. And here, obviously, the S-Mate is only responsible for registering when you are pushing your, you know, light switches, when you are, you know, flickering them, or if it's a push button when you are pushing them. But then you need a separate device in order to control the actual device, the light that you want to do. So here I use a Sonoff Dual for this purpose. And also, you know, please keep in mind that these diagrams are not, you know, like the terminals are not exactly like that. I just use this diagram, you know, this picture just to show you. But normally what happens is that you run the neutral line that runs to your light still, and then but you also connect that neutral line into the neutral input of your, let's say it can be a Dual, or if this is not a chandelier but only like just a regular light switch which only has 1 gang, then it can be like, you know, a mini or a mini extreme, something like that. So you need to connect the neutral to that, and also your live here in the switch gets connected. All the live wires gets connected together. So basically none of the live wires are switched, but they just basically pass through the, you know, the live line voltage to your smart switch, which goes to the line in, and then from the line out you connect your load, which is your lights. I mean, in my case, this is, let's say, a dual, because I have two different gangs in this chandelier, so the two different gangs are connected to the live out 1 and the live out 2 of the dual. And then on the S-Mate you have basically 6 different connections, and 3 of the left connections are essentially internally just connected together. So those are the 3 gangs, like one pole of the switch, and then the second pole of the switch goes to the S1, S2 and the S3. So here I only have 2 gangs, so I only connect the S1 and the S2. I'm going to show you this diagram, so the wiring, a little bit later close up as well, but here I just wanted to give you an idea how the the principle of the wiring. And in order to connect all these live wires together, in the box you will find like a special plug which allows you to connect them together without using, it's more like a Vago connector for this special purpose. And that's pretty much it. But of course, it doesn't have to be like that. As I said, I'm using the dual here because if you have a chandelier which has like 2 different circuits, then you can use a 2 gang light switch. But if you only have one, you can just use a mini. Or what you can also do is you can just connect the live wires together here, and then you can use smart light bulbs instead of the the regular light bulbs, and then you can set up a scene where the S-Mate controls those light bulbs directly. And I'm going to come to how you create the scenes anyway, because even in this setup you have to create those scenes. So you would have to create those anyway. It just really depends on your situation, whether you are controlling let's say a mini or maybe multiple minis, or multiple light bulbs, smart light bulbs from the Sonoff series. Okay, so let me bring you closer to the actual setup and how the device looks like. So this is our S-Mate, and as I said, you have 6 connections. You have SSS, so that goes to one pole of your light switch, and the S1, S2, S3 goes to the second pole of the light switch. And so I connected all the 6 wires. Oh yeah, you are also getting these short length of 6-core cable in the package. So I just used that. I connected each of them to the, all the 6 terminals, even though I'm not really connecting any of the, well, all of the other ends. And remember, this is all low voltage, so it's all safe voltage. It only has a battery inside, and that battery powers the whole thing. As you can see, this is this massive this massive CR2477 cell, which controls the whole device. And here in my setup, I have a very simple light switch, which has this diagram here. You can see the L and the L1 and the L2 for the 2 switches. So the L is actually connected to the S, one of the S connections, and the L1 and the L2 is connected to the the S connections, and the L1 and the L2 is connected to S1 and the S2. And that's it. And of course now you can just curl this cable back together, and then you can just put it behind, into the wall behind the switch. And yeah, just make sure that, because this is battery operated, that the mains wire is not really touching any of these stuff. And as I said, in the box you also get this it's basically a wire connector. So this anything that you connect into these are internally connected together. So this is how you here you connect the main live wire, which comes from your switch box, and then for the other end you connect the live wires, which the switch light, which goes to your light switch. So with my existing switch, this is where you would connect the wire which goes into the L terminal, and that's what was connected to the L1, L2 and L3, depending on how many gangs you have. So you're all getting this in this small box, of course with a leaflet. So it is fairly easy to set up. You don't really need anything. You don't need wires. You basically just need a screwdriver to do all this wiring. And since I finished with all the wiring, the only thing I wanted to just say that you have this small switch here on the side. So that's how you switch the switch type, whether it's a rocker switch, the one that I have. So you put it to the sort of like the up position, or if you put it in the down position, it would be a momentary switch. And there's nothing else, just a QR code on the other side. Okay, so now we have done this. So let me show you the initial setup, which I've already done. As you can see, the S-Mate is here, and you can't really do anything here. It's basically just shows you like a history, and in the setup there is nothing really. You can just put it into a room, but I mean, all the magic happens in the scenes. So let me just find my dual in my list, which should be somewhere here. Yep. So as I said, I'm using the dual, but I've already mentioned all the other devices that you can use. And you come to the settings and you will find that it has this EV-Link remote sub-devices. And it has the S-Mate 2 connected. But basically all I have done is I come here, I clicked on the plus button, and now you have 10 seconds to activate your light switch. And that's basically just, I mean, once it is all connected up and there was like a battery tab that you removed, and you just, click the light switch, flick it like this, and then it would listen to, whatever signal this is sending, and that's how you pair the two devices. It's more like, pairing an RF remote to an RF host. And as you can see, you can pair up to 8 devices for this. But if you have another dual or an S-Panel Pro, you have 8 more of these S-Mates or S-Mate 2s that you can connect to it. And also these sub-devices are how the R5 is also connected to one of these devices. So that basically concludes the, the pairing of the S-Mate to the host device, or the EV-Link gateway, as they call it. And now what we have to do is we have to set up the smart scene. So on all of these devices, if you scroll a little bit up, you find this option which says smart scene. And as you can see, I have already created the smart scene for the S-Mate. And basically, because I have 2 gangs, I have 2 events that I wanted to configure. Is that what happens if this switch is pressed, and what happens if this switch is pressed, or basically it changes status. So the way I've done that is I click on the plus button and I do triggers, and then smart device and S-Mate, and then channel 1, channel 2, and channel 3. So I have connected this to channel 1 and 2. So I've already configured channel 1 and 2. And as I mentioned before, if you are using a momentary switch, not like a rocker switch like this, you have the option to use clicked, double clicked, or long pressed. And of course, it doesn't make sense for rocker switch, because that's just a click, moving it from one position to another. So I selected click, and then save, and then on the other side I created a smart device. So here I selected the dual, but yeah, I mean, you have all the other devices that you can select from, and as I said, it doesn't have to be the device where it is connected to. So you can just use this device as a gateway, maybe like an S-Panel Pro, which doesn't have any outputs, but then you can use a Sonoff Mini or a TX, or actually, do I have light bulbs here? Yeah, the B2 light bulbs to turn them on and off directly. And what I've done is I selected dual, and I said left channel and then reverse. So we just have one click event, just like with the Zigbee button. So we are not going to set it on and off, but we are just going to set it to reverse. And that's it. And that's how I created the 2 scenes. So I'm not going to save this scene, because this is already created. But as you can see, if the channel 1 on the S-Mate is clicked, then the left of the dual channel is reversed. And equally, if the channel 2 on the S-Mate is clicked, then the right of the dual is released. And of course, if you use the momentary button, you can create some other interesting stuff as well. So maybe, if your channel 1 is double clicked, then you can set up a scene where smart scene, and where is my dual, and off and off. So you can create a scene where, say, if I long press any of the buttons, then I turn all of my lights off. this can be a scene. And of course, it doesn't have to be only the dual. You can add additional devices as well. So maybe you can have like a special function that if you long press any of the switches, not these switches, the momentary switches, then you can turn all your lights off. And that's basically it. So as I said, obviously besides the wiring, you have to have a gateway device. You have to pair it with the gateway device, and then you just have to set up appropriate smart rules that basically tell your system what to do whenever your inputs on the S-Mates are clicked or double clicked or long pressed. And that's basically just turning another device on and off. So I think this makes this S-Mate 2, or the S-Mate for that matter, very versatile. And of course, well, as you can see in this setup as well, the two things are not connected to each other at all. And furthermore, this device is completely mobile because it's battery operated. So it makes it very easy to install it in places where you either don't have wiring or you want to control something which is in a completely different part of the room, but you still want to do it. And especially if you would replace this old rocker switch with a push button switch, then you have these additional, long press and double press to control, different devices. So maybe you still want to, single click, basically just control a device in the same room. But as I showed you, you can do the long press and the double press to maybe turn off, lights on your entire floor or something like that. So these are things that are completely not connected to your switch, maybe not even in the same room. I hope you find this presentation useful. If you are interested in this S-Mate, I'm going to leave purchasing links in the video description. But I think that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next video.